And I believe it all starts with finding the perfect book, that you match with the perfect book, that the phrase, I don't like to read, that's not actually true. It's just you don't like what you're reading, and that's the issue. Scholastic recently put out a report that basically said that the older kids get, the less they read. And they did a study of kids in different age groups, and they asked them, or they measured, how much do you read? And the stats dropped almost 50%, I believe. It went from 50% of kids from ages 6 to 8 enjoyed reading. And then by the time they entered the 15 to 17 age bracket, it was 24%, I believe, said they enjoy reading. So it dropped by half, which is wild. The trend is kids aren't reading anymore.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to another episode. With us today is Tyler Snure, the author of Snure Stories. Tyler writes fantasy novels that gets kids and teens back into reading. So excited to have you on today, Tyler. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for asking. Tell us more about your journey. How did you get into what you're doing today?
Of course. I'm currently on many things. I'm an author. I work with parents on helping their reluctant readers become enthusiastic readers. I'm also a screenwriter. Going way back to the beginning, it was books. Books was the thing that started it all. I was a huge reader. I still am. But I was a huge reader growing up. And if you can see behind me, this is a real one of my bookshelves, just one that I have in my room here. I'm a huge reader, and growing up, I always wanted to write stories. I started writing at a young age, and then probably by the age of 7 is where this idea of writing really started to take off, and I started writing short stories. And then there was about a 6-year period, roughly, where I was writing things that I would never share with anybody else because they were just so cheesy and bad and like the teenage stuff that you just keep in your drawers, right? But then, about the age of 13, 14, somewhere around there, I had this idea to write a story that would eventually become my first novel, The Jewels of Fate, which I have right here. This is my first novel, published when I was 17, and it was followed by The Sword of Sorinth, which came out a few years later.
Nice.
That's a little bit how I got started.
Nice. And then where are you today? How long ago was that? How old are you now? And tell me more about everything that you have going on with your business currently.
Absolutely. I've been actually published for 6 years now. I'm 23. The Jewels of Fate came out when I was just entering my grade 12 year of high school. And then The Sword of Sorinth, the second book in the series, came out in my second year of university. And I'm just wrapping up my third book, which will launch later on this year. I've been published for 6 years, but been writing for well over 10 at this point.
That's incredible. Quite accomplished for someone your age already, to have so many published books already and to already be deep into the business and writing. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And with everything that it relates to business, you are kind of your own business, right? You
Yes.
are out trying to sell your product or service to others. Everything that you do is, everyone shares how important storytelling is within
Yes.
marketing or copywriting. And that communication piece is so huge. What are the challenges trying to blend that creativeness within the books? And now you have to go out there and try to sell this to people, or you have to convince a publisher that it's worth picking up.
Absolutely. I am self-published. My books are self-published, which means in terms of the marketing and the business side of writing, I handle everything. That doesn't mean I do everything myself, and there's a lot of things that I'm not good at, but I oversee everything and I manage everything, which is a beast of its own. That's probably right there is the biggest challenge in publishing, is when you choose self-publishing, it really is on you to manage everything. Now, along with that comes more creative freedom, which is fantastic, and it's one of the reasons I personally recommend self-publishing over traditional publishing. But if you want to do well at self-publishing, you do have to think of it as a business and think like a business owner. And you can get away with just being creative up until you hit publish, but that's not going to carry you past that. I say I've been a writer for over 10 years, but I've been in business for 6, because when my first novel came out, that's when I actually had a product that I was now selling to customers.
Right, absolutely. And Just as you described with your creative process, there was that period of time where you wrote a bunch of stuff, but it never saw the light of day. That's very similar for a lot of musicians or any artists of any point. They like to create, but they're just not sure if they want to put that out to the world. But over time, they build off of what they learn, they get more confidence, and then they have this mission, this vision that they're like, I just need to pursue this. This is what I want to do. And you stuck with it. You wrote this. You're like, I need to publish this. You need to learn everything. Kudos to you for putting all that together. It's incredible.
Thank you.
And now you're on this mission to help more kids who have parents in the office and business setting, just helping them understand the importance of reading.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that mission and everything that you're working on there?
Of course. So kind of going back down memory lane a little bit, when I was marketing my books and doing the traditional book marketing methods, one of the things that I did would be vendor markets or book signings. There were a lot of instances where I would interact with customers who would come up to my booth or they would come to my event, and a lot of them would buy, but some wouldn't. And I would talk to the parents that wouldn't buy because I always wanted to make sure that my booth and what I had to offer would appeal to you even if you didn't buy anything. But a lot of the conversations I had with parents went something like, oh, I would love to buy this book, but my kid just doesn't read, or good for you writing a fantasy novel at your age. Or they would read the back and they'd go, wow, this fantasy novel sounds really interesting, really engaging. Too bad my kid doesn't read. And when you hear that over and over and over again, you kind of think, is there a common pattern? Is there a common thread there? Eventually, I just decided to create a product that addressed that problem, which is my coaching program where I work with parents on helping them move their child from reluctant reader to enthusiastic reader. And I believe it all starts with finding the perfect book, that you match with the perfect book, that the phrase, oh, I don't like to read, that's not actually true. It's just you don't like what you're reading, and that's the issue.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a challenge for many of us. I'm technically millennial. I'm 36. We were just getting more internet and social media as I was graduating high school. And we've seen a trend, obviously. Trends change, but there is more of an emphasis on the video, the content, the social media. It kind of takes up all of our time and our attention. I almost feel bad for some of the younger generations because now you're kind of challenged with that. It's even harder for you to get into printed materials or some of the, I don't know if it's considered old school to like read a book. What is the perception from your generation and what you're finding from the kids as well? Is reading not cool anymore?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question because I was just doing some research on this yesterday. And what I found is really startling. Scholastic Canada, I'm from Canada. Scholastic is our big school book dealer, I guess you could call them.
That's his first student.
Yeah.
We always love Scholastic books. We always look forward to that.
Yeah, I loved the
Yeah.
book fairs as a kid. I would always go to the Scholastic book fairs. Anyway, Scholastic recently put out a report that basically said that the older kids get, the less they read. And they did a study of kids in different age groups, and they asked them, or they measured, how much do you read? Like, what percent do you read 5 to 7 days a week? Which is, I'd say that's average. Reading a little bit each day. I mean, that's what the schools teach us, right? And that's what parents hope for. But they did this survey and they found that the older the kids got, the less they read. And the stats dropped almost 50%, I believe.
Wow.
So it went from 50% of kids from ages, let's say 6 to 8, I don't know the exact data off the top of my head, enjoyed reading. And then by the time they entered the 15 to 17 age bracket, it was 24%, I believe, said they enjoy reading. So it dropped by half, which is wild. The trend is kids aren't reading anymore. And on the opposite side of that is kids are spending more time on screens, and that is increasing drastically.
And it's tough to try to go into a market, not to say that it's dying or dwindling, but as these shifts happen, are people going to appreciate what you're putting together? Is there a market or is there demand for what you're putting out there? Mm-hmm. And to hear from a lot of school teachers saying that many of the kids that are in their classroom, no matter the grade that they're in or the age range, is many of them are not proficient in reading and writing. And many of them are, I guess, using some roundabout ways to get through not reading, or they'll have maybe an image or a text reader that will just do a voiceover of the text that they see instead of reading it. But I find reading can be important and impactful. All those benefits are lost if we're not able to dive in and learn by reading. I feel like that's so important.
Absolutely. It's a critical skill that seems to be becoming less and less important in the digital age that we live in, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And it's like, what can we do to help move that in the right direction? And not to say like reading is the most exciting thing out there out of all the daily activities. I don't like rush into a book, but for the right topic, that's what gets me excited. For me, it's the business books, the marketing stuff. Like those are the topics that I love. It's almost like we need to find stories or topics that they themselves are going to love too. And that will help to spark that passion.
Yes, and that's what I do when I work with parents. It's because I believe it's not cookie cutter. You can recommend books, I mean, you can experiment with certain books, but the only way I believe to find the perfect book that will appeal to that reader is to understand their interests and what they're already interested in. And that's the starting point.
Tell me more about that process when you're like coaching or working with some of these parents here. Sounds like it's more tailored to them. I'm sure you're asking them a lot of questions. That way you can kind of uncover and figure out all of those motivators, correct?
Absolutely. In my one program, I deliver, it's called the Top 10 Books That Spark Magic list. And it's a personalized list for parents based on information about their child. When parents enter the program, I hop on a call with them and I just get some information about their child, learning habits, what they like about school, what they don't like about school, what they're interested in, past reading habits, all of that. And I use that information to create a list of books that appeal to that specific reader. And then I send the parents that list, and then they can do whatever they want with them. My hope would be they would buy one or two of the books and then give them to the child and see if it gets any more traction.
Nice. Have you had some client success from the parents that you've worked with already? Do you have any examples of when the kid absolutely started to fall in love with reading and then it caused XYZ to happen?
Absolutely. This program is brand new. I'm just getting going with clients. However, one of the books that I do recommend in the program, depending on the type of reader, like I said, it's not cookie cutter, but if I feel that my books would be a good fit for them, then I recommend my books. And I found in a lot of instances, the Jewels of Fate, they have that effect on kids. I'll give you an example. When my first novel came out, a buddy of mine who never read a book through high school picked it up and read it in under a week. Like, this was the guy that, like football team, like played sports all through high school, was not interested in reading. But he picked it up just to support me, which I appreciated, read it in under a week. Mind you, it was COVID, and everyone was at home in lockdown, right? But still, it was pretty cool. And then he gave it to his mom. Same thing. Same effect. And then she gave it to her mom, his grandma, and same effect. Now there's 3 generations of the same family who read this book, and they typically wouldn't call themselves readers, and yet they read it under a week.
Wow. How does it make you feel as a writer to know that other people are just diving deep into your work and appreciating that?
It's a good feeling. One half of my brain is like, wow, that's really cool. And kind of it just ends there. And the other half of my brain, the entrepreneurial side, is like, why is that? Let's dig a little bit deeper. How can I maximize this? Part of what I do is I took the qualities that I think make my book appeal to reluctant readers, and I put that in my program. And that's kind of how I vet books that appeal to reluctant readers based on how others have responded to my own books. It's cool. It's also, when you get reaction like that, it's almost like a business opportunity, because if you dig a little deeper and you find the why behind it, then you can really like push at it a little bit more and maximize it.
Absolutely. I keep telling people, you have a great client list here. Go ask them questions. What do they like or dislike
Absolutely.
about certain things? And they can give you so much insight that'll help you find and attract more of the same or similar people that you're trying to attract as well.
Absolutely.
Now, for those who are listening, where can people find you and connect with you online?
Absolutely. My website is snurestories.com. I'm on all the social medias, at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at Snure Stories. You can find me there.
Very nice. And we'll have all the links down in the show notes and the description so everyone can get connected here. Tyler, with you being in this new entrepreneurial journey, it's a fun journey. You're going to learn a lot of things. You mess up a lot, but those are learning opportunities, and you just overcome those obstacles here. What are you looking forward to most to wrap up 2025? Are there like new launches or new things you're going to be trying to do, or are you just kind of sticking with everything that has been working well for you so far?
Well, right now I'm launching this coaching program, and it's really exciting starting to work with clients and talking about the importance of reading and just sharing my heart behind this. I feel like I'm in launch season right now with this project for sure. But then I've got a bigger launch coming towards the end of the year when my third book comes out. Super excited to wrap that up, partly because I'm sick of editing the book and I just want it done and out of my hair. And I'm at the stage where I just look at it and I think I'm sick of reading this. So on the other hand, I'm very excited for others to read it for the first time,
Yes.
not the 17th time. Right. That's coming at the end of the year too.
That is very exciting. I know how it is when I'm writing songs and I'm like opening up that program to spend another 3 to 6 hours on a song that I've sunk 10,000 hours into. You're like, oh, does it need more tweaking? Could I do a little bit more? But that's our passion project, our love. We're trying to put everything into it.
Absolutely.
No, I totally get that. Very exciting. Is that going to complete the series then, or is this a part of a larger series?
These books are a trilogy. It's double exciting because it ends the actual series when this book is done, and then I'll start working on something else. But yes, The Jewels of Fate, it's a trilogy, and with books coming out.
Very nice. That is awesome. If you had to go back in time to where you were first kind of kicking things off and getting going, if you had to give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be? Some entrepreneurs are like, oh, I would have taken action sooner, or I would have skipped this process and just went to this. Is there anything that you might do differently?
I would say I would have balanced the business side and the creative side a little bit better. And I still struggle to this day, like the shift between, okay, we're in creative mode, building something, and then we're in entrepreneurial mode, trying to sell that thing, and it's two different worlds. Even today, I feel like I flip-flop between them like 3 times. But I think it's important because I never understood how books were a business and writing was a business until my first book came out. And I wish I knew that before. I could have maybe planned the launch a little bit more or looked at it from a different perspective. And maybe that would have helped me get a head start on some things. But I would say, especially, I believe all entrepreneurs in some ways have to be creative, and what you create is a form of creativity. But there are obviously more creative projects than others. Like if you're an author or an artist, a musician, versus maybe someone who's working in the tech industry, there might be less creativity. But it's so important to balance both, because you do need both, and you can't have a successful business without one or the other.
Right, absolutely. And it's great advice for other business owners and entrepreneurs out there, because it does take that balance. You're going to feel overwhelmed at times. You're going to feel like you're doing not enough or too much, and just trying to find that blend between the two. But Tyler, I think you're a great example of what many other entrepreneurs should be doing is anytime you hit a roadblock or an obstacle, learn from it and move forward and keep building and growing from that. For us, we're all lifelong learners. So the moment you stop making mistakes and stop learning, that's when you stop growing. Keep up the great effort with everything you're doing. I appreciate you coming onto our show and sharing all of your tips and tricks. If you had one last piece of advice for either the parents or the kids out there to help encourage them to read, what would be like a quick something that they could take with them to say, hey, I'm able to find the right book, or this might get me interested in reading?
Ask yourself what you enjoy doing, whether that's sports or video games or animals or whatever it is. What's the one thing that you know you love to do? And this is especially if you don't like reading or you think you don't like reading. So start there. And then step 2 is go to your local bookstore and find books on that topic. And that's where you start.
I love it. Tyler, some great tips and tricks. You're doing a lot of great work out there, both from the creative side and for the vision and mission that you're on to help kids read and the parents to help encourage that as well. Keep up the great work. We appreciate you coming on to our show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.